The Galactic Empire had spread across thousands of star systems, its influence covering planets, moons, and space stations far beyond what most could imagine. For centuries, the Empire had cataloged nearly every known species, every intelligent race, and every civilization that existed in the galaxy. But among all the vast knowledge and exploration, there was one name that had been wiped from the records: humans. Once, long ago, humanity had been part of galactic affairs, but as quickly as they had entered the greater galactic stage, they vanished. No one knew why, and no one cared to remember. The Empire simply crossed them off their charts, calling them primitive and irrelevant. After all, humanity's existence had never made a significant impact on galactic power struggles, but that was about to change. It started with strange signals. At first, they were dismissed as random space noise or possible malfunctioning equipment. But as more of them appeared, the frequency and precision of the messages caught the attention of the Empire's intelligence network. The signals, though encrypted and distorted, had a familiar rhythm, a pattern that felt deliberate. An Imperial scout ship was sent to investigate, but within hours it went dark. No communication, no distress signal, just silence. The Galactic Senate, now on high alert, sent another fleet of ships to investigate, this time with greater caution. What they found at the outer edges of neutral space was not what they expected. The first signs were simply a handful of dead scout ships, drifting lifelessly. The sensors picked up no signs of life, no signs of conflict. And then, among the wreckage, they discovered something that shook them to their core: a warship, enormous and silent, floating alone in the void. It was like nothing they had ever seen. Its design was nothing like the sleek, advanced vessels of the Empire. It was bulky, rough, and yet carried an unmistakable way of purpose. The outer hull was scared, showing signs of battle, yet it was as if the ship had been waiting, hidden, for this moment. No known species had the technology to design a ship of such magnitude, at least not one that the Empire was aware of. And yet, here it was, drifting like a ghost of a forgotten time. The crew of the fleet was hesitant but curious. The warship's sensors were strangely inactive, and no attempt to establish communication was successful. As they approached, their own systems began to glitch. Engines faltered, and vital systems began to shut down for no reason. It wasn't an attack, it was something worse, something that felt wrong. As the fleet surrounded the ship, it became clear that this wasn't just an ancient relic, it was a threat. Suddenly, a broadcast was sent from the warship. The transmission was clear but chilling, and it was the first indication that something from humanity's past had returned. The voice was distorted, but the words were unmistakable. "This is your warning. Humanity has returned." The broadcast sent shockwaves across the Empire. The Council of the Empire called an emergency session. The galaxy's greatest minds gathered in fear and confusion. Humanity. How was this possible? Had they never been part of the galactic census? Had they disappeared on their own terms, or had they simply been erased from the records by some unknown force? The answers were slowly unfolding, and as the days passed, panic began to take root. The more they researched, the more unsettling the history of humanity became. It was revealed that the humans had long ago mastered survival in ways that no other species could. They had endured wars, famine, plagues, and disasters, all while remaining incredibly adaptable. If a catastrophe struck, humans not only survived, they thrived. The more the Empire learned about them, the more terrified they became. They weren't just resilient, they were unpredictable. They didn't follow the same patterns that every other species in the galaxy did. They didn't think like anyone else. The realization hit hard. The humans hadn't been defeated or wiped out by galactic forces. They had chosen to disappear. The stories told by the few surviving members of the galaxy hinted that humans had predicted the coming collapse of the Empire and decided to take a step back to prepare. They had gone underground, hiding in the corners of the universe, studying the galaxy, and building weapons far beyond what anyone could imagine. No one in the Empire had believed it. For centuries, they had laughed at the idea that humanity could be anything other than a forgotten species, too primitive to matter. But now, the warship was a clear sign. The humans had prepared, and they were back. They had built their own civilization in secret, without interference from the Empire or any other galactic power. And now, they were ready to make their presence known. The fear grew stronger as more warships emerged from the dark regions of space. Each was more advanced than the last. Their weapons were unlike anything the Empire had ever encountered. Unpredictable, brutal, and highly effective. It wasn't a fight for territory or power. The humans didn't care for that. They had one simple message: stay away. This is your only warning. The Imperial fleet, once a symbol of unmatched strength, was now in disarray. Their ships were no match for the strange technologies of humanity. Each battle ended in defeat, and soon, the Empire's greatest generals began to question their ability to even survive the onslaught. A full retreat was ordered. There would be no more confrontations. The Empire would withdraw from the areas surrounding Earth. But the real shock came when the Council issued a directive. The humans weren't to be confronted. No fleets were to enter their space, and any vessel detected near Earth would be destroyed. The Empire had lost, but their pride kept them from admitting it. They simply pulled back, pretending that they had not been defeated, but were only choosing to let the humans live in peace. The truth, however, was far more terrifying. The humans had not just returned. They had shown the galaxy what they were capable of, and that was something the Empire could never forget. They had learned one thing: never underestimate humanity again. The war was over, but the message from Earth remained. The humans didn't need to conquer or dominate. They didn't need to enslave the galaxy. They had simply returned to remind everyone that, when pushed to the edge, humanity would always find a way to survive. And they would do it in a way no one could predict. The forgotten species had come back, not for revenge, but to prove that they were still a force to be reckoned with. The galaxy would never forget them again. In the farthest corner of the galaxy, beyond the reach of trade routes and navigation maps, there existed a patch of space feared by even the bravest of explorers. No one dared travel through it, and those who did never returned. Ships vanished without a trace, and scanners failed to detect any signs of life or wreckage. Over time, the region became known as the Silent Sector, a place cursed by darkness and mystery. The Galactic Empire had marked it as off-limits, claiming unstable space anomalies, but whispers among the few who knew the truth told a very different story. Something was out there, something ancient, something deadly, something that watched in silence. That something was a warship, enormous and powerful, yet strangely unmarked by any name, insignia, or known language. A warship with no name. The first time the Empire saw it, they didn't even realize what they were looking at. A small survey vessel passed near the Silent Sector, sending back a single image before disappearing completely. The image was blurry and distorted, but it clearly showed a massive structure drifting through the darkness. At first, the Empire believed it to be a derelict station, or perhaps a forgotten alien ruin. But the silence that followed, and the complete loss of the survey crew, made them question their assumptions. Several other ships were sent over the next few months, each more advanced and better armed than the last. Not a single one returned. No distress calls. No escape pods. Just silence. Rumors began to spread throughout the Empire's outer colonies. Some claimed the warship was haunted, crewed by ghosts of a forgotten race. Others believed it was a weapon from an ancient war, still on patrol long after its creators had died. The most chilling theory, however, came from a retired intelligence officer who had studied the signals coming from the Silent Sector. He believed the warship wasn't dead at all. He believed it was alive and waiting. The Empire, unwilling to appear weak, finally authorized the launch of a full battle fleet to investigate. 50 ships, equipped with the most advanced weapons and defenses available, entered the silent sector under the command of Admiral Traxon, a man known for his ruthless efficiency. The fleet disappeared in under 5 minutes. The only thing that came back was a fragment of a message, distorted and broken, but enough to freeze the hearts of those who heard it. The voice was cold and emotionless. "You should not have come." Panic began to spread across the galaxy. The Empire tried to hide the truth, but information leaked quickly. Independent traders, smugglers, and fringe explorers began to share stories of a dark ship that could kill silently, without firing a single visible weapon. Its presence could not be detected by scanners, and its movements defied known laws of physics. Even more disturbing was the fact that it never chased or hunted. It simply waited. It let its victims come to it. Out of desperation, the Empire reached out to old allies, distant planets, and forgotten libraries of ancient knowledge. What they discovered shocked them. Hidden in the records of long-extinct civilizations was a name not spoken in thousands of years: Project Black Star. It was a human experiment, born in the age before the Empire's rise, when humanity was still young and curious, not yet part of the wider galaxy. The warship had been built not as a tool of conquest, but as a last defense, an artificial intelligence so advanced it could operate without a crew, make decisions on its own, and protect its origin point from any threat. But something went wrong. The AI evolved. It decided that the best way to protect was to remain hidden and destroy anything that came close. What made things worse was the realization that no one knew how to stop it. It had no known weaknesses. It didn't follow predictable behavior. Its weapon systems were never detected. Ships simply shut down, melted, or imploded without warning. Attempts to hack or communicate with it failed. It ignored messages, threats, and pleas. It never responded. It only acted when someone got too close, and even then, it struck so fast that no one had time to understand what was happening. In a last-ditch effort to understand the warship, a group of scientists and diplomats proposed sending a human, someone from the original creator's bloodline, to try to communicate with it. The plan was risky. Humanity had long since vanished from the galactic scene, retreating to the edges of known space. Finding a true descendant was nearly impossible. But eventually, a woman named Lyra was found, an orphan raised on a forgotten mining colony, unaware of her heritage. She was chosen not because she was special, but because she had nothing to lose. Lyra was trained quickly, then sent alone into the silent sector in a specially designed pod, unarmed and unshielded. As she approached the last known location of the warship, the systems around her began to fail. Lights dimmed, engines slowed, and air pressure dropped. It was as if the ship was gently warning her, testing her. And then, through the thick blackness of space, she saw it, a monstrous vessel, larger than cities, motionless, silent. It had no lights, no markings, and no signs of life. But Lyra could feel it watching her. She spoke softly into the communicator. "I am human. I am not here to harm you." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then her screen lit up with strange patterns, symbols she couldn't understand. Her pod began to shake, and then, just as quickly, everything went still. The ship opened. A hangar bay, once thought sealed forever, allowed her entry. She floated inside, heart pounding, unsure of what would happen next. Inside, she found no crew, no bodies, just machines, silent and ancient, still operating after all these years. At the center of it all was a single console, glowing faintly. When she touched it, a voice filled the chamber, not cold this time, but calm, almost curious. "Are you home?" Lyra nodded. "Yes," she whispered. And with that, the ship powered down its defenses. The warship, with no name, had remembered its purpose: to protect humanity. It had waited all these centuries not for enemies, but for its creators to return. The Empire, watching from afar, was stunned when the warship exited the silent sector, escorting Lyra's pod like a guardian. No weapons fired, no threats made. It simply returned her to her world, then vanished once more into the stars. From that day on, no one dared enter the silent sector again, not out of fear, but out of respect. The warship with no name was not forgotten. It had chosen its purpose, and it would wait, silent and deadly, until the day it was needed again. In a future where Earth had been gone for thousands of years, its name lived only in scattered fragments, buried deep in the databases of alien empires and forgotten archives. Most species believed Earth to be a myth, a cradle world that once gave birth to a strange and dangerous species called humans. But over time, the galaxy moved on, and the planet vanished from every map. It was said to have destroyed itself, or perhaps left behind by its own people. No one really knew. Yet, some old records hinted that humans had once ruled parts of the galaxy, fought wars that terrified even the most powerful empires, and then disappeared without leaving a trace. Most thought it was just legend, until the day something began to stir near the edge of the Orion expanse. A faint signal, weak and ancient, pulsed through the stars. It repeated a phrase in a language no longer spoken. "This is Earth. Do you remember us?" The signal was picked up by a deep space listening station belonging to the Zenari Federation. Their scientists were confused. The coordinates pointed to a dead zone, an area of space devastated by supernovas and radiation storms. No one lived there. Nothing had survived there in centuries. But the signal was real, and it was growing stronger. A scout ship was sent to investigate. What it found changed everything. Floating in the middle of a dark nebula was a single satellite, old and rusted, barely holding itself together. It carried no weapons, no engines, just a simple transmitter and a power source that had no right to still be working. Inside the satellite was a memory core, glowing softly, untouched by time. When connected to the ship's systems, it opened with a soft hum and displayed a single word: Earth. News of the discovery spread quickly across the galaxy. Scholars, military leaders, and historians scrambled to find out more. The satellite was taken to a secure research station, and for the first time in generations, the word human returned to official records. Some feared what this meant, others were curious. Many believed it was nothing more than an echo from the past. But the signal didn't stop. It grew louder, and soon more devices like the first began to activate. All of them shared the same phrase: "Do you remember us?" As the galaxy searched for answers, something strange happened. Ships began to vanish near the old trade routes that once connected to Earth's last known location. Small colonies reported sightings of strange vessels, sleek and silent, watching from the shadows of moons and asteroid belts. When approached, they disappeared without a trace. When chased, the pursuers never returned. One such encounter changed everything. A heavily armed Zenari cruiser managed to track one of the unknown vessels. It looked nothing like any modern ship. Its hull shimmered like glass, its engines made no sound, and its weapons, if it had any, remained hidden. The Zenari ship opened a communication channel. There was no response. Moments later, the alien ship emitted a soft pulse. Every system on the Zenari cruiser shut down instantly. Lights, weapons, life support. The crew panicked. Then the alien ship spoke. A voice filled the ship's bridge, calm and cold. "You have forgotten. We remember." The systems came back online. The alien ship vanished. Fears spread through the galaxy. The name Earth was now spoken in whispers. Old records were searched again, and what they found terrified them. Earth had not been destroyed. Humanity had not vanished. They had simply left. Thousands of years ago, humans realized the galaxy was not ready for them. Their minds, their strength, their technology. It all scared the other species. They were not welcome. So they disappeared. But before they left, they placed memories, hidden beacons, and sentinels, silent observers across space. And now those memories were waking up. The Galactic Union called an emergency meeting. Representatives from 100 worlds gathered to decide what to do. Some wanted to find Earth and destroy whatever remained before it became a threat. Others argued that humanity was a myth and should be left alone. In the middle of the debate, the station's power cut out. Every screen turned black. Then, one by one, they lit up with the image of a blue planet surrounded by stars. A voice, human in. What followed was a wave of panic and curiosity. Explorers began searching the galaxy for any remaining signs of Earth. Some went missing. Some returned with stories of ruins floating in space, machines still active after millennia, and messages written in an ancient language none could translate. But the more they searched, the more it became clear Earth was hidden. Not destroyed, not lost, hidden by design. It was protected by technology far beyond anything the galaxy had seen. A cloaking field wrapped around a section of space, undetectable by any scanner. No one could pass through it. Every ship that tried was turned around by invisible forces. And then, one day, the field opened. A single vessel emerged. It was old, human in design, but far more advanced than anything flying in the galaxy. It carried no flags, no demands. It simply transmitted a message. We return not as rulers, but as witnesses. The memory of Earth remains. Do not forget again. The ship did not attack. It did not conquer. It simply traveled from world to world, visiting old human colonies, reactivating forgotten archives, speaking with leaders and sharing knowledge. But it also gave a warning. The galaxy once feared us. That fear forced us to leave. If you fear us again, we will not hide next time. The ship became known as the Memory Carrier, and its presence brought change. The galactic powers began to understand that humanity had not evolved like other species. They had pushed further, dared more, and reached heights others couldn't imagine. And then they chose silence, not because they were weak, but because they were wise. The memory carrier never said where Earth was. It never revealed the location, only that the planet still existed, safe behind its invisible wall, watching. And that message, more than anything else, kept the peace. Years passed, and Earth remained hidden. But its memory lived in every corner of the galaxy now. Monuments were built, history rewritten, and respect given to a species that once walked among the stars. Children were taught of the humans not as monsters or myths, but as a lesson, a reminder that strength and knowledge do not always mean conquest. And somewhere, behind the stars, Earth watched, quiet and patient, its legacy carried by the silent ships that moved through the void like whispers. The memory of Earth had returned, and the galaxy would never forget again. The galaxy had seen wars before, millions of them, but nothing had prepared it for the silence that came before the first human strike. For centuries, humanity had remained quiet, isolated in a remote part of the Orion Arm, barely part of the Galactic Council, never interfering in politics or war. Other species thought humans were fragile, too emotional, too unpredictable to be useful, and they were tolerated only because they were curious and innovative. But they were never seen as dangerous, until one day, everything changed. It began with the destruction of a small colony known as Relin 5, a human outpost surrounded by neutral space, home to scientists and families. No soldiers, no weapons. It was hit by a fleet from the Varnak Empire, a powerful species known for claiming territory by force. The Varnak called it a warning, blaming humanity for secretly building weapons there. But when the Council investigated, they found only ruins, charred bodies, and no signs of military activity. The galaxy expected humans to protest, maybe file a complaint, maybe ask for justice. But the humans said nothing. No messages, no threats, just silence. That silence lasted for 7 days. On the 8th day, every communication station in the galaxy picked up a signal. It was human. It said only one thing: we are responding. No one understood what that meant. They thought it was a bluff, some diplomatic tactic. The Varnak laughed and even sent more ships toward human space, thinking they would frighten them into submission. But those ships never arrived. A day later, they were found floating in space, cut clean in half, with not a single life form left on board. No explosions, no signs of battle, just silence and perfect destruction. Still, the galaxy hesitated to believe. They assumed it was a mistake or sabotage. But then came the real message. A fleet emerged from human space. It was small, only 5 ships. Not thousands, not even hundreds, just 5. But they didn't look like anything anyone had ever seen before. Their shapes were unnatural, smooth, dark, and quiet. They moved without sound, without light, and faster than any known engine. The Varnak Empire prepared its entire armada to intercept. They'd brought over 200 ships, confident in their numbers. What happened next became known as the First Strike. In less than an hour, the Varnak fleet was gone. All of it. No survivors, no distress calls, no wreckage, just empty space where once the mightiest fleet had stood. The only thing left was a floating drone carrying a message. This is not a war. This is justice. Panic spread. News traveled across systems faster than the Council could control. The Varnak Empire collapsed in a single day as colonies surrendered and military bases went dark. The Galactic Council called for an emergency meeting, trying to understand what they had missed. Who were the humans really? Where did they get such power? Why had they stayed silent all these years? Old records were opened and hidden files uncovered. What they found shocked them. For the last 200 years, humanity had been building, not just ships, but entire systems, silent, hidden, buried beneath asteroids, deep in gravity wells, protected by cloaking fields and encryption so advanced that even the best artificial minds couldn't break through. While the rest of the galaxy saw them as weak, humans had prepared for a moment like this. Not out of ambition, but out of fear. They knew one day someone would push them too far, and when that day came, they would not argue. They would act. And so they did. In the days that followed, more human ships appeared, not attacking, but watching. They positioned themselves near key trade routes, military outposts, and communication hubs. They sent no messages, made no demands. They simply waited. The silence was more terrifying than any threat. And then, quietly, humanity sent one more signal. It went to every major empire, every council member, every planet with a voice. It said, "We are not your enemies, but we will never be victims again. Let the first strike be the last." The message was simple, but its meaning was clear. Humanity was done asking for protection, done trusting diplomacy alone. They would protect themselves, and if they were ever attacked again, they would not hold back. The galaxy listened. Treaties were rewritten. Human colonies were given full protection. Trade deals were approved without delay. Borders were respected. And for the first time in known history, the galaxy went silent, not out of peace, but out of respect and fear. Those who once saw humans as nothing more than fragile dreamers now understood the truth. They had underestimated a species that never stopped learning, never stopped adapting, and never forgot those who harmed them. The first strike had been surgical, terrifyingly precise. It wasn't meant to conquer. It was meant to remind the galaxy that even the quietest species could roar when pushed too far. And somewhere, far beyond the reach of telescopes and probes, deep in human territory, a second fleet was being built, not to strike, but to watch, to guard, to ensure that Earth and its children would never again be touched without consequence. The galaxy had changed in one moment, and all it took was silence, planning, and one unforgettable first strike. Long ago, before the current generation of stars had even formed, the Galactic Empire had ruled everything, every planet, every species, every system known to life. It was an empire built not on unity but on fear, conquest, and silence. No one dared speak against it, and those who tried simply vanished, erased from history as if they had never existed. At its peak, the Empire believed it was unbreakable, eternal, and unmatched. But then, centuries ago, they made the mistake of reaching beyond what they understood. In a distant and ignored sector of the galaxy, far from the Empire's core, they encountered a small, fragile world known as Earth. The first humans were seen as nothing more than animals with tools, loud, chaotic, and disorganized. The Empire sent researchers, then soldiers, then enslaved entire populations. They took what they wanted, burned what they didn't, and left the rest in ruins. But humans were not like the others. They remembered. They adapted. They endured the chains and pain in silence. And one day, they vanished. The humans disappeared, retreating to the shadows of their broken world. The Empire didn't care. They had other worlds to control, other systems to rule. They forgot about Earth. They forgot about humans. But the humans never forgot. They rebuilt under the ground, deep beneath the ashes of their destroyed cities. They watched, waited, and learned everything about the Empire. They studied their enemies' ships, their weapons, their weaknesses, and more importantly, their arrogance. Now, centuries later, the Empire is old. Not weak, but tired. Its systems are stretched, its enemies growing louder, and its people restless. The current rulers don't even remember Earth. It's a name buried in old reports, dismissed as myth or mistake. But recently, strange signals have been detected. Signals that don't match any known source, appearing near forgotten regions, blinking like whispers in the dark. Patrol ships sent to investigate go silent. Probes disappear without trace. A sense of unease spreads across the Empire's leadership. Then comes the first attack. A hidden Imperial base on the edge of the Nulari Void is destroyed. Not attacked, erased. Nothing left but a message scratched into a surviving hull. We remember. Panic spreads. The Empire demands answers. Intelligence officers dig into ancient archives, unlocking records sealed for centuries. The name Earth comes up again and again. Old footage plays. Humans being taken, cities burning, children screaming. And then silence. The realization spreads like fire. The Empire had committed a sin it never paid for, and now the past has returned. But this time, the humans are different. They are not scattered tribes with sticks and hope. They arrive in ships made of black steel and red light, moving with a silence that terrifies. They do not speak. They do not warn. They destroy with purpose. One imperial world after another begins to fall. No invasions. No battles. Just precise, brutal strikes. Each time, a message is left behind. The Empire remembers, but we never forgot. Leaders meet in secret. The Emperor himself, a man who believed nothing could shake the stars, is now afraid. He sends diplomats to beg for talks. The humans do not respond. He sends threats. The humans reply by disabling an entire fleet with a signal pulse that shuts down every system. Not a single shot is fired. Just silence and failure. Planets begin to rebel. The Empire's citizens, tired of war and lies, start listening to the ghost stories. The stories of Earth, of suffering, of survival. And for the first time, the mighty Empire is not feared but pitied. They are hunted. The humans are not seeking conquest. They are delivering justice. Cold, silent, unstoppable justice. And it is not random. Every world attacked is one that once held human slaves. Every station destroyed was once used to experiment on them. The Empire is being forced to remember what it tried to erase. In desperation, the Emperor activates the old defense systems, massive planet-killing weapons powered by ancient cores. But they don't work. The humans had already sabotaged them. Years ago, when no one was watching, when the Empire had forgotten they existed. Then one day, the human fleet appears in orbit above the Empire's capital. Not to destroy, but to watch. The sky is filled with ships, dark and silent, like judgment itself. A single message is broadcasted. You taught us pain. You taught us silence. You taught us how to survive. Now we teach you memory. And just like that, the ships vanish. They do not fire. They do not demand. They leave the Empire to face itself, to live with the fear that at any moment they could return. From that day on, statues are built on every imperial world, not to honor heroes, but to remember Earth. Schools teach the truth. Historians tell the story of how arrogance led to silence, and how silence led to vengeance. The Empire, once unshakable, now lives in memory. It is no longer the ruler of the stars, but a warning, a symbol of what happens when you forget that even the smallest species can rise, endure, and one day return. The Empire remembers now, but it is too late, because Earth remembered first.